jumping the gun. What am I
Okay, and we are live.
doing? Okay, so once again, the hour of 5:30 having arrived, we are going to call to order this meeting of the February 27th, 2023 Finance and Personnel Committee meeting. All right, so could we have a roll call, please?
Alder Taft,
I am here.
Alder West excused.
Yep.
Alder Pete,
Present.
Alder Horton,
Present.
Alder Tate the second.
Here.
That completes roll call.
All right, so the first item here is the approval of the minutes for the January 30th meeting.
Second.
Okay, moved by Alder Tate, seconded by Alder Horton. Any discussion on that item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Director Fisher, take it away, please.
Sure, item number 0135-23, communication sponsored by Alder Taft, submitting the amendment of resolution authorizing purchase of land and easements relating to Chicory Road area sewer improvement projects. Recommendation of wastewater commission on 117 that the consideration and approval of the resolution be approved and referred to finance and personnel. Finance and personnel's recommendation on 130 that it be approved. Recommendation of wastewater commission on 215 that the amendment of the resolution authorizing purchase of land and easements related to Chicory Road area sewer improvement project be approved and referred to finance and personnel committee. Staff recommendation for this meeting for finance and personnel that the wastewater commission be allowed consideration and approval of resolution authorizing purchase of land and easements related to Chicory Road sewer improvement project. Fiscal note, the amended negotiated agreed cost with the property owner KJJ Real Estate LLC is $109,974 based on independent appraisal. Director Tillis is here to speak on the item.
Please proceed, sir.
Good evening, and thank you for having us here. So this is the same item I brought to you guys last time. There was a amendment based on the survey, found an extra about 100 acres or 100 feet that we need to purchase. So this was just an added cost to purchase those extra 100 acres that we found on the survey once it was done.
Okay, Mary?
You say 100 acres or 100?
So it was about 3,500.
Okay.
Yeah, the setback was miscalculated with like the standard.
I thought I heard you say acres. so-
No, I did say acres.
We're like, wait.
I mean, it would be great if you get that many pieces of price now. Okay, cool. Any other take?
So the cost associated for the additional acres or footage or in total? Just the 109,000.
The 109 is the with the amended cost in addition to the previous total. So the extra feet only added about $6,500.
Okay, so this is the total.
The total cost for the land acquisition and temporary use.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, a motion would be in order.
Second.
Okay, moved by Alder Tate, seconded by Alder Pete. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. All right, next item, please, Director Fisher.
Item number 0176-23, communication sponsored by Alder Horton on behalf of the Director of Park and Recreation, requesting permission for the mayor and city clerk to enter into an MOU with Racine Unified School District to provide entry-level recreation activities for the following programs: 2023 Summer School Playground Program, Girls High School Summer School Basketball League, and Teen Outreach After School Program. Staff recommendation to authorize the mayor and city clerk to enter into the MOU with Racine Unified School District. Fiscal note, program budget total approximates $363,066. Expenditures will include salaries, supplies, transportation, and will be fully reimbursed by Racine Unified School District at the end of the program. Superintendent of Recreation Mars is here to speak on the item.
Good evening, and thanks for having us. We were here last year with our first couple of collaborations with RUSD through Park and Rec. Back again for a second time, I'm here with Matt Gomez, who's been working really hand in hand with RUSD. We have 3 programs that we are looking to do with RUSD. The first one is our summer school playground program. Last year was the first year that we did that we talked about to the board here. It was very successful. We had our playground leaders in all 7 of the summer school sites. We again are looking to do that as well as our other playground sites throughout the city. We also were contacted about bringing back the girls' high school summer basketball league and taking that over in Racine again, where it has been in years past. This program will actually bring revenue into the Park and Rec department as well, fully reimbursed by RUSD, where we take all the high school teams, and I think we're looking at using Horlick High School, trying to get all our teams in together for those girls to work on the basketball skills in the summer. And our last one is one we're pretty excited about. It's the Teen Outreach Program, the TOP program. Park and Rec was contacted by RUSD to collaborate on this program, as well as one of the other nonprofits in the city. And this is an evidence-based program, basically a 9-month program promoting the youth development through engaging curriculum, community service, learning, and supportive relationships with adults. We will bring this program into 4 of our 5 community centers after school in the fall. Park and Rec, Matt and his team will be leading that, and we'll have facilitators at all our community centers. Again, fully reimbursed by RUSD, but bringing in another great program to our centers that'll be starting in the next fall. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about it. We're excited about these collaborations. Our first 2 with RUSD went very well. So these are, again, bringing in stuff, new programming for our youth in Racine.
No, thank you. It sounds like a great program. One question, what is the city's liability or involvement specifically? I understand the reimbursement piece of it.
The city's involvement will be that our team on the Park and Rec side will supervise all the programs, and we will hire the program leaders. So the playground leaders will be hired through the city. They'll be city employees. So any of the liability with the MOU, I guess, is I don't know exactly how to explain with the RUSD if they're in the facilities. I believe if there's any issues will be, in the RUSD facilities for those.
All those like,
Thank you. Just, I just want to say thank you guys for, in the department for, getting these programs, and actually, communicating and working with Racine Unified. Anything that pertains to summer and kids have something to do, I'm overjoyed with that. And there's many programs that we can onboard. I would love to see them, because as summer approach, I would love to have the kids have different things to do in the city.
Absolutely.
I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
great. I guess I love this idea of the girls' high school program. So how does that work? Like, how many days a week is it, or like how many hours a day?
I believe it'll be split up in 2 days, JV and varsity. So the JV girls teams throughout the Racine city schools and any of the county schools would play on one day at Horlick, and then the varsity girls teams would play on the other.
Okay.
So that weeknights
Okay,
in the summer.
cool. All right. So it's kind of like a summer league.
Yep, summer
Yeah,
league,
yeah,
yeah, and
so
it kind of benefits our high school kids right in the city and giving them opportunity to play a little extra basketball in the summer and hopefully bring that into the school year.
Yeah, that's great.
How many people will participate in each of the programs?
Matt, do you know how many at each summer school site for the?
The summer school sites, we were able to staff enough to have between 65 to 80 kids, depending on if it was a K-8 school or a K-5 school. So the summer playground program, we are definitely hitting just about every kid that attends summer school has the opportunity to stay after the additional 5 hours with us.
And the TOPS program?
The top program, that is something new that the district piloted over the last year. And their goal is to expand that outside of the walls of RUSD and into the community. I got to observe it, and the program was piloted at Chavez Center. So that program is going to be targeted specifically based on the grant that myself and RUSD wrote, targeting African American and Hispanic children based on test scores or attendance risk. Program's still open to everybody, but the goal is to target those kids that are not necessarily staying after school, but coming to the community centers. So the goal is for us to provide some of that team outreach and help them in those situations where the overall goals, which evidence is showing, is that in time, the needle is actually moving for these kids to increase their reading and attending school and decrease that at-risk behavior that we're seeing out in the community. So that would be up to 3 to 4 days a week in about, like, we'll do 2 true sessions or group 45 minutes, and then the other 2 days will be there for staff to just interact with the kids on a recreational level.
How many kids?
So we could take, each site can take up to about 25, 30 kids. So we're looking at probably 120 across just the community centers, where then inside the schools, I think everybody has to get at least 30 minutes of it before they participate in another after-school program. But coming up shortly here, we'll start to train our staff between us and RUSD. You'll probably hear more about it because RUSD and ourselves are going to plan on doing a big marketing campaign throughout the city here. So
All right, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, a motion would be in order at this time.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, moved by Alder Pete, seconded by Alder Horton. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, please. Oh, yeah, Lewis, come on in. Let the record reflect that Alder West is with us today.
Okay, item number 0197-23, communication sponsored by Alder Taft on behalf of the fire chief requesting permission for the mayor and city clerk to approve and sign the agreement for the exchange of fire protection and rescue services automatic aid agreement between the city of Racine, village of Caledonia, and village of Mount Pleasant. Staff recommendation that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to approve and sign the agreement for the exchange of fire protection and rescue services automatic aid agreement between the city of Racine, village of Caledonia, and the village of Mount Pleasant. Fiscal note is an A. Assistant Chief Wolf is here to speak on the item.
Good evening and thank you. So you may have heard that the bridge on Northwestern over Root River at the intersection of MM and Rapids is going to be replaced. Date to be determined. But what we'd like to do is the fire department work with Caledonia and Mount Pleasant and get an agreement for an intergovernmental response for automatic aid, so that if something would happen on either side, we have a response that's appropriate. It's just that simple. So we just are trying to get ahead of the curve. So any questions?
Yeah, well, first one, that's a great idea, and I don't see how we could do it without it. But what about the liability side and the reimbursement or payment for each department?
That's a good question. So we're still responding if it's on the other side, and the first jurisdiction would probably be the first responder, then our ambulance would still arrive, and if we transport, we're billing. Yeah. And same for their side. If we're, let's say it's at the quarry, we would go as a first responder. If they have an ambulance available, they would send that and they would do the billing for that as well.
Okay.
Yep.
So, and there's been some discussion about whether or not to do the quicker complete shutdown over the course of the year or the longer 2-year replacement, but always leaving half of it open.
Right.
Does that change the necessity for this at all if it becomes the latter versus the former?
The chief and I have talked about that, and we still feel it'd be good to have this in place because there could be a backup with cars. So we just want to make sure that we're covered either way it goes. And right now, they're still trying to figure out if they're going to do a full replacement or partial, to your point, Mayor. So we're not really sure, but like I said, we just want to have a plan in place. So.
Sounds good. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, a motion would be in order.
Move to approve.
Moved by Alder Pete, seconded by Alder Tate. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item number 0190-23, communication sponsored by Mayor Mason for the approval of the 2023 General Economic Development Services Contract with Racine County Economic Development Corporation. Staff recommendation that the 2023 General Economic Development Services Contract with Racine County Economic Development Corporation be approved. Further, that the mayor and city clerk or their designees be authorized and directed to enter into an agreement with RCEDC for 2023. Fiscal note, the cost of the contract is $86,520, sufficient Funds are available in the intergovernmental revenue sharing account or object 45260-52100. Executive Director Jenny Trick is here from RCEDC.
Please proceed, ma'am.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be with you this evening. I believe your package included the contract for next year as well as a summary of activities from last year. So just I'll point out in the contract for next year, we engaged our leadership council, which is the larger body of the organization, it's about 32 members, along with our 3 loan advisory committees to come together in October to help us build the strategic plan. Many of the elements have not changed for 2023, but we did add 2 important elements based on the feedback that we received from those meetings. And the first one I'm excited to say is about entrepreneurship. This was something that came out loud and clear to us really during COVID. And really pleased to say that many of you may remember this, but for years we had a percentage of businesses that we wanted to support that were disadvantaged businesses in the city of Racine. And we always had a hard time meeting that goal. And of the 107 projects that we did last year, 51 of them were disadvantaged businesses. So we're really pleased with that number. Of the 22 projects we did in the city of Racine, half of them were to disadvantaged businesses. But through that interaction with those small businesses, we realized that there's not enough support systems in Racine County for entrepreneurs. We've got great partners at WIBIC, as well as Legacy Redevelopment, as well as Small Business Development Center. But there's such a demand for services that we heard that loud and clear from our leadership council, as well as from the individuals that we've interacted with over the last couple of years, primarily through the Main Street Bounce Back Grant was another opportunity to hear this. So we're really glad to see that that was added into our strategic plan for next year. We're very happy also to be talking with BizStarts Institute out of Milwaukee that has had a very successful program supporting entrepreneurs in the Milwaukee region that we hope to bring to Racine County. And then the second addition to the other 6 that we continue to strive for is promotion and marketing. One of the things that we heard was that there's a lot of good things that are available through our organization as well as our partners, but not enough people know about them. And so as much as we pour into our website and our social media and our newsletters and whatnot, there's still greater opportunities. A lot of people like events. They like to network and they like to talk with other people. So we're adding more events to the slate for the coming year as well. Otherwise, the core of the activities remain the same, trying to recruit new development and businesses to the area. But our primary activities are really supporting existing businesses in Racine County with either technical assistance or financial resources, small business loans, grants, and incentives. We continue to do the talent attraction. Racine, as well as the rest of Racine County, is hungry for new talent to work at their employment. That was one of the reasons why we added housing also to our docket back in 2018. Normally, when we work with businesses, they're the ones found either on Main Street or in a business park. But we realized if we were to have a successful talent attraction initiative, they needed a place to live. So with the help of the Josh Jeffers group, who's added a lot to your community, as well as many other developers, since we started this initiative back in 2018, more than 3,600 units have been added to Racine County housing. So very excited about that. So that's the gist of what we've been doing last year and what our plans are for 2023.
Okay, any questions? Mary?
Jimmy, could you just mention, there's lots of great things we got to do with you this year, but could you just mention some of the packaging? And then could you just describe DLP a little bit? Because it's a little known. You guys do this small business lending that's, I think, not the sound enough. So if you could just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so of the 22 projects that I mentioned, one of them was Summit Packaging. This is a company over in the Olson Industrial Park. We've worked with them before. Great company. It's out of the area, headquartered out of the area, I want to say New Hampshire, if my memory is correct. But they approached us indicating that they wanted to do an expansion. And so we were able to work with the mayor's office and Department of City Development. And as a result of that, 145 new jobs will be added at more than $20 per hour. I believe their expansion is almost complete, if not complete. And we'll be the first to know that we're nominating the project to our board of directors to be the business project of the year, which will be made award at our annual meeting in May 4th. As for Business Lending Partners, it's a trade name of the business finance team of Racine County Economic Development Corporation. It's a little confusing, but the reason that we did that is we provide not only revolving loan funds in Racine County, but we're also a certified development company that can provide loans throughout Wisconsin. It's a little weird to have RCDC showing up in Wausau with an SBA loan. So Business Lending Partners has been established as part of RCDC since 1983. We've been a certified development company through the SBA, Small Business Administration, since 1985. Yeah, we provide countless loans and grants. I'm going to say probably 69 loans and grants were provided last year alone to businesses.
And more events, which I know you had.
Love planning events. So not true. But it's good for the community, so we will do it.
Yeah, great. Any other questions, comments? I'll just
Thank you. I would just like to say, keep up the good work, and I was wondering where we're gonna get people for some of this new housing development, and that to answer the part of that question. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. I hear, and perhaps the folks from Josh Jeffers can tell otherwise, occupancy is high at most of the developments that we are aware of. Very happy to report, which is confirming to the 2020 housing study that we did, that we were drastically undersupplied.
Great. Someone also happens to be in my district 10, so that's great. Keep up the good work.
Well, thank you so much. Okay, so do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, moved by Alder Pete, seconded by Alder West. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right.
Item number 0203-23, communication sponsored by Mayor Mason, requesting a reallocation of city ARPA funds to fund the Grow Racine nonprofit mini grant program, community needs. Staff recommendation that the $705,000 of city ARPA funds be reallocated from the following categories: compliance, workforce, and grant manager to fund the mini grant program. Fiscal note, the reallocation consists of a budget reduction of $250,000 from the compliance category, $155,000 reduction from the workforce category, and a $300,000 reduction from the grant manager category. Funds are available in each of these categories to reallocate. This was my item that I will speak on tonight. So there's a nice ABM attached to the agenda itself. But the mini grant program was put out on the Grow Racine website in early January of 2023. We had a great response to this program. Again, these grants are about $10,000 to $25,000 each. Again, a little bit smaller buckets for a little bit maybe smaller nonprofits that don't have the capacity to deal with large grants. So we had a great showing for that. Those grant applications and everything associated will be presented to the CDBG Advisory Committee, who is in charge of actually approving the allocations. But in order to approve those allocations, this funding needs to be in place to approve those allocations. I want to talk through just a little bit of the reallocation. So if we all remember back in late 2021, the fourth quarter, the Common Council approved kind of specific allocations associated with the guidance of our city ARPA funds. This is our $46 million of city ARPA funds. 3 of those categories, specifically compliance and grant manager. At the time, we had intentions to hire an outside company to help with compliance. We have found that it's A, not necessary, and B, actually more confusing to have an outside company. So you're getting Kathleen Fisher to do that for, let's say, free. So there's some money available for that under that program. Also in that grant manager category, if you remember way back when, We talked about potentially hiring either an internal grant manager or again, retaining a relatively pricey consultant. We do have a consultant that's doing great grant writing for us and has gotten us awards in the millions, tens of millions. But she's actually relatively inexpensive and we retain her as we need her grant by grant. So there's some funding available there. And then in the workforce area, there's a few grants, and you'll see this as it comes to CDBG advisory, that are more workforce related. So that's really why we're reallocating from that workforce category. In addition, we were anticipating hiring a workforce manager or Racine Works kind of manager here in the city of Racine. We haven't been able to do that, so there's some funds available there. Any questions for me on this?
We've already been over it, so, other things.
Just for clarification, a large percentage of the funds are being reshuffled or moved from places like grant management programs where it wasn't used. So
Correct.
other programs or initiatives are not going to fall short because of the transfer of funds.
Correct. None of the other city initiatives themselves. This is all kind of compliance type money that is not being used, that is now being reprogrammed to great city initiatives to get out in the community.
Right? Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, a motion will be in order.
Second.
Okay, moved by Alder Tate, seconded by Alder Horton. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 0080-23, communication sponsored by Alder Taft and Mayor Mason on behalf of the Human Resources Director requesting permission to appear before the Finance and Personnel Committee to discuss a proposed policy describing eligibility requirements for post-retirement health insurance for sworn public safety employees. Staff recommendation to approve the proposed policy and direct the Human Resources Director and City Attorney's Office to make all necessary handbook changes to implement the policy. This will notice to be discussed. HR Director Horton is here to speak on the item.
Thanks for having me. So as you all may remember, there was a declaratory ruling that confirmed that law said that health insurance plan design was prohibited, subject to bargaining. Therefore, there was a need to take the language out of the related to health insurance plan design out of the collective bargaining agreement and place it into our handbook, policy and or handbook that is not subject to bargaining. So this policy encompasses the eligibility criteria for health insurance for retired sworn public safety employees. This policy will set forth the eligibility requirements for public safety employees as well as surviving spouses and dependents to qualify for continued post-retirement coverage under the city's health insurance plan. Most notably, the policy will institute the rule of 78 for certain sworn public safety employees, wherein an employee must at least be 53 years of age and full years of continuous service totaling 78 in order to qualify for health insurance coverage upon retirement. Existing sworn public safety employees who are closer to retirement will be grandfathered under the previous existing criteria for health insurance coverage in retirement. This policy also addresses eligibility for continued health insurance when a sworn public safety employee retires due to duty incurred injury or disease, non-duty injury or disease, or death. Any questions?
Do you have any questions regarding this item?
What's the effective dates under this?
It would be July 2023.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it too easy. I do want to point out because this is the body that should make the policy. As we, if I remind you that we had this debate a while ago that when we made the decision we did for non-reps,
there was a general consensus that maybe public safety needed to be reevaluated and a different policy put in place. That's what's before you tonight. As it is written though, we took the policy from the non-rep code, and that is any hire after, in this agreement, because the contract comes to July, we put off any decisions because of the ruling for July. But this perceives that nobody hired after July of 2023 would be eligible for this. As non-reps or new hires as non-reps are not eligible at all for any retiree benefit. I do want to point out to this committee and to the council overall that we still have our comparables out there that are offering still retiree healthcare coverage. You would find, I think, our chiefs in favor of a policy of that new hires continue to get a version of retiree healthcare. Obviously, it's the new version under the high deductible. Director Fisher can talk to you about, there's less of an impact going forward than what the legacy costs that we're facing in the past. But really is up to you as policymakers to make that decision because it's the financial obligation that you are committing to. But I will just say that, we're seeing County, which we have been continuing, Kenosha, which we have been continuing. A couple other entities are still offering some version of retiree healthcare to their public safety workers, separate from their non-representative employee. We also want to consider that given the vacancies that we need to fill in the police department, this could give us an advantage in the next years as we try to recruit those classes. So I just want to bring that to your attention. Didn't want you to just not know it was there and really need your if you want to change it, all you have to do is say you want to have that change made by HR administratively, and then the new policy can be updated for the council.
I'm glad to see the number go from 85 to 78. I think it's more appropriate for public safety, given how soon they're eligible for WRS comparatively. But we've been through this all year, and not as much in the fire, but certainly in the police department, where we're looking to be competitive and be able to recruit and retain people. So I think if this is an additional tool that helps us do that, I think it's worth considering. I don't know if you want to ask the chiefs to comment at all.
Would either of the chiefs like to, or I guess at this point we're talking, like both police chiefs, and if you want to chime in, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sure. I'll speak from back here. If that's okay, I'll leave Administrator Paul up there. Okay. Folks might want to see what's happening.
Yeah, sorry.
Forget about the TV aspect of it.
People like to see who's talking. Yeah, people like to see who's talking.
So as the administrator had pointed out, one of the challenges that police and fire are facing is the recruitment and retention of individuals. There's a piece of this policy that gives us a lot of difficulty in trying to do that. And I think it would be appropriate for this committee to evaluate that policy and decide the direction to go here. What I can tell you is, I'll let the police chief speak for himself, but we did have an individual we were recruiting today, and he backed out of the process because of the post-retirement health insurance. And there's just no other way to say it. And I see that as being an impediment down the road here that would really put us in a bind, especially in a highly competitive market that we're in right now. We're having challenges recruiting people, much less keeping them here once they do get here. So something to consider. I don't think anybody in this room would want 65-year-old police officers or firefighters on the streets. Certainly, certain jobs within the administration, such as my position, it's a little bit different. Not as physically demanding, but the work of police and fire is extremely demanding, and it takes its toll on the body in a number of different ways. Chief Robinson. It's the oldest guy in the room. I think what needs to be said has already been said. One of the things that we have to take into consideration, as Chief Hanson says, we ask these people to do a lot. And during the course of that, they sacrifice a lot physically and emotionally. And the toll that the equipment that we wear every day takes, it has some wear and tear on the body, on the hips, on the back. And if we intend to keep very, very good people, everybody's going to need health insurance until the time they're eligible for some other federal programs. So to the extent that we can retain the people we have right now, which we need to train the people we're hiring, that's what I need to be able to do. So retention is just as important as recruiting, and health insurance is one of the ways to get that done.
Okay. All in favor?
Thank you.
This might be a question to either chiefs to comment to, but my question would be, based on some of the retirements we've seen, how many of them would have remained eligible or already crossed the threshold of where the below 78 might have been?
I'd have to go back. Speaking just for fun, go ahead.
I have a little bit of data for those that are actually still here. So I just looked quickly at fire because I assumed this question was going to come. So there's about, between police and fire, at least 20 right now that would meet that sum of 78 as they are right now. So, I mean, just personally, just to remember that the non-reps are at a sum of 85. I think 78 is kind of fair in that place versus perhaps anything other than that. But that I looked very, very quickly though, right before I came.
And as far as police is concerned, there's kind of an anomaly that we have that people that started in their 20s but are approaching their mid to late 40s, they're having to make decisions as to whether or not they can stay here or if they have to go somewhere else because they may have to work to, if we make that a much larger, not longer number. That those are investigators and those supervisors and those are also people that are field training officers. We are in a tight spot now. It would put us in a position that I don't even want to contemplate. If we had to lose, I think I've got 12 to 19 that are falling into that category. They have to make career decisions.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
So my other question, so to be very clear, so this would be age 53, 25 years of service, which isn't that uncommon for 25 years to serve as a law enforcement officer. My other question is more along after reaching that 78 and what that post healthcare insurance looks like. I think existing in the handbook, we have some clauses that say, you know, if you find employment elsewhere during that time, that they have to take the other employment, that they don't have the option between keeping the city or accepting the new employer. So this would be applicable to this policy too as well.
That would be consistent with the non-rep policies.
Okay. So I think that's critical because like certainly if they don't have insurance elsewhere, we're happy to continue to provide it. It's earned, it's warranted, but if they can be getting it somewhere else, then they should be getting it somewhere else. So do we also have anything in the policy that exists right now of requirements for affidavits to say, confirm that they do not have insurance elsewhere?
So how are we doing compliance right now? In terms of, are we surveying them, sending them forms? Making
They're surveyed.
They're surveyed, which means they, punishable by law if they're lying.
Okay, all right. And that's my only concern is, you know, people retire all the time, it happens. But then also like, well, it's a little cheaper for me to stick with this one, but it's also not, you know, reasonable.
Yeah, I know. I think you're pointing out a really good thing because the other manipulation of it is come pay me as a consultant for this rate because I can still take the city's health insurance.
Right.
So we don't want to encourage that.
So language wise, if someone finds employment but wants to work as a consultant that doesn't provide insurance, what is our protection there to say that you actually have income that could be providing you insurance as opposed to?
That's a good point. I don't know if we can catch that.
So I think that if the example shared is a prime example of that,
Exactly.
you're making $80,000, $120,000 a year as
I
a consultant.
I think we write it as if the company provides health coverage, you should be eligible for health coverage versus being a consultant. But I don't know. We'll have to work with the city attorney to see how. But I get, we've identified what that is. I think the intent has always been they should elect a health coverage if it's offered to them.
Yes, but I also think of like very real examples of going into private security of some sort or start becoming an entrepreneur. And, I wish it was that for everybody because you might all feel a little bit more free to be entrepreneurs if you weren't tied to insurance or employment. But I think that's also something we need to address as far as our policy. If someone does choose to go in that route, is the city the means of their healthcare or should it be something else?
Yeah, I think we can work certainly on the language, on the clarity of what our intent is, and then we can work with the city attorney's office to see what. That enforcement.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions? Alder Pete?
Yes, it's probably more for Director Fisher. How does that fit into the current budget? I know we can't talk about the future budget, but first of all, I want to clarify, Of course, I'm in 100% support of the changes in the handbook. That's not even the issue. But I'm concerned about the sustainability of it.
Thank you very much for the question. So I think that sum of 78 is really a nice balance between fiscal responsibility and our ability to operate and our retention and our recruitment of employees. We really have to look at both things when we are looking at this picture. The change to the high deductible health plan had the largest impact. So our costs for those retirees that were 10 years ago, probably twice as high as they are today, have come down because of that high deductible health plan. So that really got us the majority of the savings. Obviously, it is true. As you have retirees and they're still on our healthcare and you're bringing in new employees and they're on our healthcare, there are some costs there, but I think this is a really great balance between fiscal responsibility and retention and recruitment.
Great answer. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, I think at this time, I think there's been a lot of uncertainty and I think that spooked some folks and I think, there's been a good amount of that. And I think at this time, because the policy as it is excludes folks hired after, I believe, January 1, 21.
23.
Or 23, I'm sorry, 23. I think that at this point we should extend, I want to amend this document to extend those, the ability to stay on the city healthcare for those folks hired after that date as well. I think that's important for recruitment and retention and just so folks feel supported. It's been a long time and I think I want all of our city employees to feel supported and we certainly value the service and we want to recruit and retain the best folks to our community. And I think this will help go a long way into doing that. So that would be the amendment. So I would like to make a motion to amend the document to include retire, I don't know how to best do it, to not exclude those hired after, amended, how would I word that?
Do we want to say to strike section I of the policy?
I think that would be appropriate.
3I.
3I. Okay, so the motion would be to exclude section 3I from the policy for eligible public safety employees. So, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by the chair, seconded by Alder Pete. Any further discussion on the amendment? Yes, sir.
So that particular wrinkle makes you question in terms of what that means if, let's say in the future, we're in a position where we might not be able to sustain that, and we do have to change that, or do want to consider changing that. I think we're currently facing some, legal questions around what it looks like to change that after someone's retired. So what does this do in terms of our flexibility, if necessary, to change that after someone has retired?
I will let the lawyers jump in. I'm wrong in trying to pretend to be one, but the declaratory ruling said that this is benefit design. Who is covered, right? The only bargainable issue is premium share. So if we say that a new set of hires are eligible for retirement, post-retirement healthcare benefits, at a late, no council, no American bound the previous one. So if 10 years from now, this A is not an attractive benefit on the market, you'd rather take that money and put it into wages, or you're forced to do something, another counselor, they could make that change. Same process that we're doing here, bringing you a change to the handbook that must be approved by the council.
So just make sure I understand right, because I heard you say like new hires, so existing employees. So if this would go in effect for the new hires post, July 23, and let's say July 33, we're saying we can't continue to do this, and it's applicable to the current employees.
No, it would only, you can only do that for after. So it would only be for new employees. Just like we're grandfathering people here today, any new hires in July of 2023, until the policy is changed, will be included in that retirement.
Yes, and that's actually one of my kind of concerns as far as the fiscal long-term reform, because again, we had to make a difficult decision 3 years ago about this, and it affected, previously retired groups. And now we're kind of creating another cohort that could be in a similar situation, depending on the financial futures. And I'm not sure, if we're fully understanding that that's what we would be proposing to do, is create another scenario where a future council would be in the same position as we were 3 years ago.
Well, it's,
Exactly why I brought it to you.
yeah, I mean, I think it's not exactly the same position. I can totally hear what you're saying. It's similar. It is similar, but but we have the change to the high deductible plan and we have the rule of 78. And so it's those two things have gone a long way. I mean, that's why we had to make the hard decisions that we made. And I think that this does largely take that into account. Like, it's definitely better for the long-term sustainability of the city. And we really need to recruit and retain the best people now. And I think the need is critical. And I think that this is really important for that purpose. Yeah, personally. Any other questions? Oh,
So I mean, I do have concerns with the long-term fiscal impact, so we have a hiring and retention problem now that we have to address. So might say we can't afford it, but I would say we can't afford not to. I hope we'll approve it.
okay, well, so we need to vote on the amendment first, right? So I will move to approve the amendment. Or no, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we already did that. So, I mean, we're in discussion for the amendment. Okay, so any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And so now we are back into discussion of the motion as amended. So does anybody have any questions, concerns, discussion on that?
We haven't made a motion.
Oh, okay, we should do that. Would you like to honor us with a motion? We need a motion for the main
Move to
motion.
approve as amended.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Tate and a second by Alder Pete. Any further discussion on the motion as amended? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for that. So I guess the next item, please.
Item number 0193-23, communication sponsored by Mayor Mason, requesting a $5,000 hiring bonus for all persons hired to be police officers hired after March 7th, 2023, until hiring bonus funds are exhausted. Staff recommendation that a $5,000 hiring bonus for all persons hired to be police officers hired after March 7th, 2023, until the hiring bonus funds are exhausted, be approved. Sorry. Fiscal note, estimated cost of the program will be $100,000. $40,000 of the funding is available from the local law enforcement agency grant ARPA. Board object 201215010031063. $60,000 of the funding is available from city ARPA org object 22931501000. These funds are available through 12/31 of 2024. Director Horton is here.
So I think this is kind of a continuation of the problem we've been discussing about hiring. Right now, the RPD has about 19 vacancies. And so we just had a recruitment period close. And of the 89 people that applied, we only have about 60 left. And that is, we haven't even got the written scores back or the PRT testing. So a lot of people have reached out to our HR generalist, removing themselves from the process for various reasons. Some saying they had other opportunities, no longer interested in pursuing a police officer position. But it's a continuous thing. Like, we open up, we try our best to change the processes, to improve them, to recruit best qualified candidates, and we're still coming up short, for lack of better word. So we think that this $5,000 hiring bonus would assist in recruiting a good, diverse group of candidates for police officers.
Would these hiring bonuses only be applicable to brand new recruits, or would this also be available to lateral transfers?
Right now, we wrote it as brand new recruits.
If
I don't mind.
these are new hires to the department,
New hire.
then that would qualify, I suspect, a lateral if they're new to the department.
Because I don't mind poaching, and having a wastewater all
Mhm.
from the other sectors, so.
Yeah, I've been the poaching, so yeah.
Yep.
The other question is, we have a set number and a set bonus, it's also a time period for that. I guess my question is, how do we come up with this particular number? Given what the chief has told us before about how many we can actually recruit at a time and what the actual academies look like and how many can actually serve. So did we just take the number of what's the most officers we can potentially get in within this window, and just set that as the number, or how do we kind of come to this?
No, I'll defer to Director Fisher, but it was based off of monies available.
Yes, good question though. So I'm estimating 20 in this analysis. We may or may not spend that, but the two different funding sources are a little bit different. The local law enforcement allows us to do $2,000 signing bonuses, a max of 2,000. So again, did 2,000 times 20. And then the rest I use out of city ARPA funds to cover to the 5,000. I estimated 20, don't know whether we'll get 20, but once the 100,000 is gone, it's gone.
I guess the question I always have regarding bonuses is if we give folks hiring bonuses, then is there a period of time after, that they have to be employed with us before they have to pay back some of that or what is our policy on, can you get hired and then a month later leave,
So we're looking to give them half of the monies upfront with the hiring, and the other half would not be distributed until they successfully complete their field training. And I believe we said it was a 3-year commitment.
I think what we're talking about was a 4-year reduction by 25% for longevity. And the other thing that we were also working through is, in addition to that hiring bonus, to prevent people from getting trained at our dime and leaving, we've come up with a number that also is an additional bar that has to be jumped over. So that if you leave before, at the end of the year, you have 75% of the cost that it took for us to put you through the academy training. So there's some hooks to tie you
And
to.
what is that cost, may I ask, on average?
I don't have a hard number on that right now, I don't, because what I also want to do is calculate the number of hours we had to assign a field training officer to train you in addition to the academy costs.
Okay,
Because we get our training back from the state, but what we don't get back is the time we invest in field training and in service.
and how long is that field training period again?
6 months and you're on probation for another 6 months. So from the time you're out of the academy through field training and then off probation, it's 18 months.
Okay,
But I'd rather tie you to me for 4 years. So that after 24 months, you don't take my training, my experience, and go somewhere else.
right. That sounds reasonable. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Alder Jones, if you have a question, no?
I would just say move on 5 years.
I mean, we could do 5 years, but with today's younger recruits, some people may think 5 years, okay, I'm gonna do something else now. So I don't think 4 years is unreasonable, but I'm open to discuss.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah, on the
So it's kind of reasonable to say this is a $2,000 signing bonus and a $3,000 hiring bonus, because if they're getting the first two kind of upfront, that's really, thank you for committing, this is for that, and for staying is the other portion.
It's the first 2,500.
2,500,
That's
sorry.
getting half.
Mhm.
And then a 25 retention.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah.
So can we get some clarity in terms of whether this would be applicable to, not new officers, but also lateral transfers or new transfers into the department? Because it seems as though it was presented as strictly new hires, but it sounds like it might be worthwhile to have it be to a broader pool of potential.
Yeah.
Definitely amended to cover everyone. It wasn't really specified out regarding transfers, so we can.
which include new hires and new to us hires.
That's what you.
Yeah, that would be helpful to me.
Okay, on the beat.
Yeah, I think you just commented on part of my comment or question. And that is, you have to include lateral transfers because as we stated earlier, there are new hires to receive anyway. But the other part of my question is, what about someone who was already working for the city or the county that wants to go, say somebody from correctional office or something, or the sheriff department, I mean, the county jail or something like that.
Well, they would be a new hire to the city because they would be current county employees.
Well, what about current city employees?
That,
If you're already working for the city and you want to move over to law enforcement.
Still new to the department.
Yeah, still new to the department. I don't even think this, I don't think it needs an amendment because it's.
I don't
new
know.
hires.
Just have to clear down the road.
Yeah, I think so. So we're clear on that this is new hires and new to us hires, new to the department.
And then qualifies.
Right.
That's something, okay.
Right. Okay, I think that's fair. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, well, a motion would be in order at this time.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, moved by Alder Pete, seconded by Alder Horton. Is there any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 0175-23, communications sponsored by Alder Taft on behalf of the city attorney's office submitting the claims of Alyssa Shukar for consideration for disallowance. Staff recommendation that the claims be disallowed. Attorney Rubik here to speak on the item.
Please proceed.
Alyssa Shakar filed claims, she filed 2 claims with the city. One with the city of Racine and one with the city of Racine Police Department. She also filed on near identical claims with over a dozen other municipal parties demanding $350,000 in unspecified damages, allegedly arising from an injury that she suffered from a rubber bullet that hit her in the wrist or hand, causing the need for some physical therapy and surgery during the protests in Kenosha over Jacob Blake shooting back on August 25th, 2020.
Move to disallow. It's happening.
That's the crux of it. There's no proof that it's our officers who did this. And yeah, we request disallowance of both claims that you filed against the city and the.
Second.
Okay, moved by Alder Tate, seconded by Alder Horton. Any further discussion?
So we have no way of proving whether it was one of our officers to start with? It could have been
It could
from
have-
Mars.
yeah.
We can't prove it was. Okay.
Can't prove it.
Okay, any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, please, Director Fisher.
Item number 0179-23, communication sponsored by Alder Taft on behalf of the city attorney's office submitting the claim of AT&T Mobility LLC for consideration for disallowance. Staff recommendation that the claim be disallowed.
According to police reports, this claim was filed by AT&T Mobility with the city requesting $268.27 in damages to one of their vehicles when they allege it was struck by a police department vehicle back on September 20th, 2022. According to police reports, it was actually a chain reaction crash where involved a total of 4 vehicles, but 3 of them were legally stopped at a red light waiting for the light to change. The 4th vehicle came from behind, it was just a private citizen, hit the 3rd vehicle in line, which then hit the 2nd vehicle in line, which was a city of Racine Police Department vehicle, which then hit the AT&T vehicle. So, the city does not believe it's the liable party for this claim, for these damages. We have referred the claimant to the liable party to seek recovery, but we'd like this claim to be disallowed.
Wouldn't a claim like this usually have to be pursued through the insurance to determine who, if any, owns some portion of responsibility as opposed to directly from the claimant?
I agree that this is something that, insurance would usually hash out. But because of the claim statutes, they do have to file a claim with the city to give us notice.
Move to this one.
Second.
Okay, moved by Alder Tate. I'm gonna give that one to second to Alder West. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Right. Next item, please.
Item number 0178-23, communication sponsored by Alder Taft on behalf of the city attorney's office, submitting the claim of Mary McIntyre for consideration for disallowance. Staff recommendation that the claim be disallowed.
Sorry, please proceed. Thank you, attorney.
This claimant, Mary McIntyre, who lives at 2424 Dwight Street in Racine, filed this claim for reimbursement in the amount of $15,462.01 for damages allegedly caused by water in her basement that arose from a sewer backup that occurred back during that 200-year flood that we're now all familiar with. Happened on September 11th to 12th, 2022. Like these other claims, no defect was found in the sewer mains that service her house. They were inspected as part of the routine cycle, a 3-year cycle on June 29th, 2021. And they were also looked at again on September 13th, 2022, the day after the storm subsided. There was no sign of defect. They were simply surcharged and overwhelmed with the unusually large amount of rain that fell during that storm. So in insurance parlance, the storm was called an act of God. It's a natural event that cannot be reasonably foreseen or prevented, and the city is not responsible for acts of God. So we have no liability over this, and we would recommend disallowance.
So we've talked about this a few times, but I don't remember claims. I guess my broader question is, if a system of prevention is built to certain specs, and like, where's the line of, obviously you mentioned like act of God, but where does the line of liability kind of come into effect when you build something, because one could foreseeably build it below spec and kind of constantly have things going beyond it. So where does that kind of line of liability occur? And again, we're talking about this because it happens to dozens of households during this particular event, but it's happening again today throughout the city in some places that there's flooding occurring. So kind of where's that line of liability starts to kind of broach that as events occur, and what sort of reasonableness exists for the city and the utility and other entities to kind of build their specs, if there's a necessity for those specs to kind of meet these more frequently occurring challenges that are ultimately impacting homeowners.
That's a good question. And I think it's probably one that is answered in a combination of engineering experts and attorneys putting their heads together. I don't know if there are any engineering experts in the audience. I can tell you that I believe the city's storm sewer system is built to handle what they call a 10-year storm. And I suspect that was done, because that was the standard at the time. That's considered what's reasonable. Most things are judged by a reasonableness standard. Can you base the expense of building a sewer system that can handle a 100-year storm? Is that, a cost benefit that balances out? I don't know the cost of these things, but I think that's how, at least in theory, it's sort of.
I guess my thought would be that, like, who makes that determination ultimately that, the system that you build or the cost benefit is not sufficient to what needs to be. So like, who would make that determination? Obviously, our engineers made a determination like this is what's reasonable. I believe the Public Service Commission to some degree has made those determinations as well. But I guess in these sorts of scenarios, when it's kind of happening, and it's happens a bit more frequently than I think even those entities would have anticipated at the time they made the decisions. Is there an external entity that says, like, actually, this is what it needs to be, or actually what you're deciding to do is actually not reasonable?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. As a mere attorney and not a wastewater engineer. But I assume there are some standards set forth, either on a state or federal level that dictate what is sort of a reasonable size. All we can really control is that the system that we have in place is functioning properly. And that's where our liability is determined based on what we currently have.
That was a little broader of a question than the subject, but I think it's somewhat relevant. And I think also for like anybody who might be listening, like, well, what's going on here? Why do we have so many backups? Well, you're getting events happening that aren't supposed to happen. And they're not supposed to happen as frequently as they are. And as much as people might want to dismiss climate change, it's real and it's expensive. And the cost is right there, black and white on paper. So either we need to start doing more to reduce the frequency of these things as much as we can. And then we have to spend some more money to mitigate the impacts of these things as much as we can. But if we're not actually serious about it, then we can expect a lot of basements to back up and other things to get washed away in the process.
Yeah, I mean, just to your point, I mean, there is also a cost to overbuilding a system, and we talked about that too on wastewater when we talked about why can't we just build these systems for 200-year storms, and then that does come at a cost, in terms of flushing them and other issues. So you don't want to overbuild, but I think you all certainly brought those up when we're building holding tanks and other issues. So we are, the utility and the wastewater commissioners, I think, thinking about that and trying to anticipate those as much as we can. So, okay, great. So do we have a motion on this item?
Sorry.
Moved by Alder Tate, seconded by Alder Horton. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, please.
Next item would be closed session. So would you like me to read the closed session language and then a motion to go into closed session?
That would be lovely. Thank you.
It is intended that the Finance and Personnel Committee will convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 1985, Paragraph 1 to address matters that for competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 1985 1G to confer with legal counsel concerning strategy with respect to litigation in which the city of Racine is involved.
I believe we need a roll call vote to go into closed session.
Well, we need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, motion first. Okay, moved by Alder Tate the second, Alder West, seconded by Alder West. So yeah, we have the motions. Roll call please.
Alder Taft,
Yes.
Alder West,
Aye.
Alder P,
Aye.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder Tate the second.
Aye.
That completes roll call to go into closed session.
Okay, we are now in closed session.
So we'll stop everything.